We're kicking off.
Hello.
Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning. Happy today, whatever day today is.
Yeah.
When you watch this.
Yeah.
Happy today. Welcome back to Truth, Courage and Tea, and we do have our cups of teas today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just on a good old Narada, and I'm my cup, which is Tracy's. Oh, it's on both sides. Making it a year to remember, and that's probably true for me because I am making this year a year to remember, making every year a year to remember. What go for yours, and I just want to, if I remember afterwards, I just want to mention something that I saw during the week.
Yeah, so I'm just having a decaf, but I actually grabbed my husband's mug. One of his past employees did a collage of photos on a mug of a trip that we'd had to Japan, and I just looked at the cup and I thought I would love to drink out of that today because that was one of the happiest times of my life. So I've encapsulated it, or she encapsulated it in a mug. What a good idea.
It's a great idea. Actually, just reminds me, this isn't what I wanted to talk about, but when I was working, and we used to have, as a bit of a fun thing at work, we would have mug of the month. And it was when someone had done something, a bit silly, nothing bad. And it wasn't about, maybe we were laughing at them, but, it was something they'd done silly and we all had a bit of a giggle about it. But we would get their photo and we would put it on a mug. I think you can go here in Australia, I think you can go to Big W or Kmart or somewhere and you can get a photo on so that's a good idea. We're off very shortly to Norway, as I've mentioned a few times, so, you know that. That might be an idea when I get back to get a couple of mugs with some photos of us, or I could get my grandkids as well. I love that. I love that. Do you know what? Just going back to this one, making it a year to remember, I saw a post on, I think it was on Facebook this week, and you know, like I said, our channel is about, you can agree with us or not agree with us, and we would love you to tell us in the comments if you think what either of us or both of us are talking about is absolute rubbish, or whether you agree with us. We don't mind one way or the other, do we? No, we don't mind. But that guy Alex Hormozy, he's, you'll know him, some big influencer in the world, big businessman, made trillions of dollars or billions of dollars doing whatever he does. Put a post up, something like, don't quote me, but it was something like, having a bit of a crack at people who celebrate birthdays, or, put up on Facebook that it's their birthday. I was a bit like, when you get into your 60s, like, why aren't we celebrating birthdays? Why aren't we celebrating birthdays every day, like every birthday? But why aren't we just celebrating every day? And, because every day you wake up is worth celebrating.
100%.
Even if you're having a shit day, you've made it 100% of the day so far. You're still here. So,
exactly.
Celebrating. So anyway,
we only have the present, don't we? There is some sort of meme, I just can't think of it, where they say about yesterday is the past, tomorrow is the future, all we have is the present.
Today is your present.
So, it's how you choose, how you choose to show up.
So making it a year to remember, we're celebrating times when Tracy and Doug were in Ash were in Japan.
Beautiful Japan.
So celebrate. Celebrate, because it's important to celebrate these things. So we've got a few topics that we're going to talk about today, I think, or maybe just one today. It might get a bit heavy. Just premise with that, it might get a bit heavy, and I am going to refer to I've got some notes just so that we get it as much right as we can, because it's about some stuff that's gone down. But do you wanted to really discuss this, Trace? So do you want to?
Well, it was. I guess it was just something that affected me. Something that, if I think about things ongoing, obviously there's a reason for that, and there's concern there. And I was reflecting on the death of Oliver, a 27-year-old man who was lured, I believe it was to a school, believing that he was actually going to meet a lady for a date from some sort of dating app. And when he got to school, instead of being met by the woman that he thought he was meeting, he was met by 7 youths. And these youths range from female 14 years, 15 years to male 15 to 17 years. And Oliver was assaulted, and 2 weeks later he passed away. And I was really affected by that, because we all have young adults, and it was so innocent. He was probably quite excited,
Yeah.
and the fact that he was met by basically a gang, and it was intentional. But what was intentional? Was it intentional just to steal the car? Was that the intent? Was it intentional that they wanted to harm Oliver? They're things that only they know. But what it does is, I get disturbed by the fact that these are just such young people wanting to, whether it's steal something from others or harm others. It's like, what is happening in society or social media that lures people to commit these sorts of crimes, So I think that the family want Oliver to, in some way, shape or form, bring about some sort of change, because they would feel that way, because that way they could not validate a death, but there could be some good done as a result of something tragic, right? So I reflected on a few things. It was the fact that they're teenagers that committed the crime, the fact that it was an intentional act, but we don't know exactly what the intent was, and a very, very innocent, could be anybody, very innocent person has lost their life, So there's a lot of things that come off this, because obviously now in Queensland where we live, the government have adult crime, adult time, which means these kids will be trialled for murder as an adult, and if a life sentence is 20 years, they will get the full force of the law. The children involved, or the teenagers are involved, are refusing to allow DNA, which would obviously tie some to the murder and maybe others not. I thought it was disturbing that all the lawyers, or 6 of the 7 lawyers, were objecting to the DNA. So does that mean that everybody's involved? Because if I was innocent, I would be wanting my DNA to be tested.
Can I just say, this is all alleged. So we are just, just to make very clear, they have been charged with murder, but it's an alleged attack. They've not been convicted with anything as at the time of this, us taping this. So I just want to make that really clear. I just want to make that clear, Trace, and I know you know all this because of the work you do.
It's only and it's only what you've read too, and what there is CCTV footage.
Yeah,
because they did, they had met up at the school. So all of these lives have been completely destroyed. There's the teenagers and their families. There's Oliver and his family. And there's the extension of all of that as well. So I guess my immediate thought went to, it's the perpetrators, the alleged perpetrators, and why do we have such a generation that wants to inflict harm on other human beings? Where does that come from, Because I guess essentially I always look for, it doesn't matter whether it's in the medical side of things or society, if you can find a causation, then you can do something about something. Whether it's in medicine, what causes cancer, now find the cure. What causes our kids to be violent, what causes our kids, like if they stole the car because they genuinely don't have money? I don't think so. But that's just my opinion, right? They could come from families of low socioeconomic, sick of not having food on the table and go out and commit crimes, steal cars, sell them, get paid, you know. But what is driving this sort of behaviour in our youth? And we do hear a lot about it on our media here in general in Australia. There's a lot of crime in the teenagers, whether it be knife crime, machete crime, whether it be things like this, you know, robberies, cars. Car theft is just uncontrollable at the moment. So, yeah, for me, it just brings up what is happening. Why are these kids so intent on doing these sorts of things, you know?
Mm. And look, as always, we'll have this discussion. We don't have the answers to any of this. You know, we only have our views, and we have no advice for anyone. I do know myself, there's been a few things, and I do watch the news. I mean, a lot of people will say, I don't watch mainstream media, and I get it. You know, I understand why people don't watch mainstream media, but some of these sort of crimes that are happening currently in Australia, so that's the one, you know, they're not only on mainstream media, they're all over. They're over social media, they're over, you know, everyone is talking about it, because everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people are angry about what is happening in terms of the youth crime in our country. And I think this one in particular for Oliver Conroy, and it is, I'm so saddened because I've got, you know, and you might, like, I've got a son who's, you know, in his 30s, and I mean, my heart goes out to the family, because it doesn't matter how old your children get, they're still your children. And so my heart really goes out to Oliver's family, and I can't imagine what they would be going through and how they would be feeling. But I do know myself, Trace, that I was very angry about this crime when I heard it. And for me, it'll be a couple of things. This will really test the Queensland government's policy around adult crime, adult time, because I don't know that we've had, since this policy has been introduced, I could be wrong, but if there has been one before, it's not been as public as this one, where we've got young, you know, what is it, seven teenagers who have all been charged with murder for this alleged, you know, murder that took place. So number one, this is going to test the government, and I think Queensland people are watching this closely, because for most of us, and I will say, if the government doesn't follow through with this, there will be a big outcry about adult crime, adult time. So for me, there's that, and I agree. Why? And maybe it's just because it's in our face more. Look, when this happened, and I was talking to someone else, and I was like, you know, when I was 14, I think we used to prank people, right? I think the biggest prank that I ever did was either you'd knock on someone's front door and run away.
Yeah.
I know, right? But that was annoying back then, right? Because it's happened to us as adults.
We did the same.
It's in our apartment. It's happened to us where kids have knocked on our door and run, and I'm like pissed off with them. But you know, or got on the phone and rang a random number. Back in the day when we didn't have mobile phones, landline phones, couldn't tell who was calling out. Ring up, and I don't know. You'd say something silly that, you know, there was a silly thing that we would say. That was like pranking. Now, as you said, none of us know what the intention behind this was at all, but it wasn't a prank. In my view, in my opinion, this was not about a prank. This was about an intention to commit a crime of some sort. Maybe it's just gone too far. And one of the things that Trace and I were talking about before was, you know, how How do young people, and again, love to know your view, whether you agree with us or not, absolutely interested in your views on this topic and other topics that we will lead into over the next few days. What's happening? Are these kids pawns in a bigger game somewhere? And I'm absolutely not taking away from the crime that they have allegedly committed. But are they pawns? I was saying to Tracy before, I read, this was a little while back, there's that game, I don't even know how you play it, Roblox. And I think there was this whole, almost like a syndicate of people who were pretending to be young players on this game, but then getting young girls in particular to do, I'll rephrase that. Young people in particular to do nasty things to their siblings to start off with. So they would go and hurt their siblings, and I don't know what they were getting in return for it. It's like pedophiles that groom kids. These people know what they're doing. They know how to get into the brains of a young person and somehow influence them to do something that, probably their parents would go, my child would never do that. But I don't know how it works, because when my kids were small, I could never get them to do bloody anything that I wanted them to do. So is there a bigger picture at play here that, someone is but I don't know for what benefit. Like I even if there was someone with these teenagers going, you do this, what are you getting in return for? Like, I don't know. I mean, we could speculate a lot. Social media has a lot. We were also talking about the fact that, we see so many people who have genuine businesses are getting restricted on social media, banned on social media because they said a word that, Meta didn't like. And yet I see things, I'm sure you do, I see things where, people are really unkind, really nasty, showing things where people are getting hurt, and you report it, and Meta comes back and says, and again, I know they're just bots, I know they're AI bots, but come back and say it doesn't go against our community standards. Yet a legitimate, genuine business that says a word that a bot doesn't like gets restricted. So, I'm not sure where we're going with this. Well, I don't know where I'm going with what I'm saying, but it's just what's happening in the world where we have young people who feel the need or are somehow influenced to go and commit crimes that will impact them for the rest of their lives and hurt other families.
I think, look, the scary part is, Lisa, it's like you said, when we were kids, it was pranking at that age. We've all seen from a decade ago, there was the trend with young ones actually just randomly picking a person and assaulting them and filming it and then putting it up on social media. And like everything evolves. Everything. I've spoken about this. So this whole space is evolving and now it's getting more and more serious. And as you said, if it is orchestrated, then what is the intent behind it? You can understand if kids are stealing cars, they're selling the cars on the black market, they're making money. But if they're not doing that, then what is the reason? And because we're not, I always used to have a saying when I used to do my fraud training in Medicare, I used to say to the staff, don't expect to think like a criminal unless you are one. So I think this is why we all feel a bit vulnerable in this space, because we're not criminals. We can't think like these people think. So we're like grasping at straws, like what is causing this issue? How do they manipulate these minds? And it's not just young minds, because there's so much grooming going on, whether it's in the pedophilia space, whether it's in this violent space, whether it's robberies, you know, there is something driving this, something very, very, very evil. And if it's on the dark web, you know, kids find this stuff. We don't find it because we're not looking. But it's organically like spreading among this cohort, and they find out about this stuff, and then they know how to commit crimes, how to complete suicide, how to murder, how to, like, it's all
there. And it's always like, and I get it. Look, I'm a big fan of social media because I am of the belief, and I don't know whether I've said it on this channel, but I've said it on my Facebook and my Instagram. I'm a believer that, you know, technology in the hands of good people, good things will happen. Technology in the hands of not so good people, not so good things will happen, right? That's my belief, whether you agree with it or not. And I consider any type of social media platform a technology. See, for me, it's bigger than social media. It's the internet. The internet, for most of us, the internet is social media. That's what, you know, most of us use social media, use the internet to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, check our email, you know, do some messages to our friends, you know. But the internet is much bigger, and you talk about the dark web. I wouldn't even know how to get on the dark web, like, and I'd be too scared to try and Google or ask ChatGPT how to do it, like, because I'd be thinking someone's going to come knocking on my door. So, you know, maybe our generation, we have this bit of a fear that has been somehow instilled in us about not, but, you know, I don't know how young kids today think that it is okay to commit these crimes, whether it be the tragedy of Oliver Conroy or whether it be the stealing of cars that we see every day in Queensland. Every day there is, you know, cars are being stolen. We hear of machete violence, particularly in Victoria. And I know lots of people blame lots of different things for why this is happening. I'll say it here, I don't believe, this is my view, but a lot of people will blame immigration, a lot of people will blame poverty, a lot of people will blame, you know, bad parenting, a lot of people will blame single parents, a lot of people, like you said, they grasp straws because we really don't know. Blame the police, we blame the government, we blame because in my view, we don't know.
Well,
we can't get it.
Something has clearly gone wrong. Like, you know, back in my mother's and father's era and their parents' era, you might have had gangs.
Of course.
You know, right? And the gangs might have, you know, I don't know, they might have bashed some people. But there was not the violence, full stop, that there is today against you know, in that young cohort,
in the young cohort,
group, right? Yeah. The violence was more, it was generally older, you know, gangs, because they're controlling something, whether it's drugs or whatever.
Yeah. And I guess, I want to do a disclaimer here, because I think we've always had a lot of violence in the world, in the country. We just never had the internet to show it, put it in our faces like it is. I'm sure there are people out there, you know, we've had racism, we've had, you know, and that's caused a lot of violence against, you know, people. We've had, you know, people who are homophobic, and we've seen a lot of violence back, you know, and it probably still does continue, but back in the day against, you know, people who were gay. You know, we've had a lot of violence against, you know, women. I mean, domestic violence has always been there. People say, oh, it's more prominent now. I don't believe there's more of, sorry, people are saying there's more of it now. Personally, I don't believe there's more of it now. I think it's more in our face, documented. And women are feel more confident to come forward. So you know, because back in the day it was just done behind closed doors and no one said nothing. If the woman next door was getting bashed by her husband, it was like no one said anything about it, nothing at all. So I feel it's always been there, but I do agree the ferocity, is that the word? The ferocity of the violence in younger people.
They're just angry.
Seems to be,
they're angry.
Yeah, really bad at the moment. And I don't know what the answer is. Like we said, we don't have any answers. We're just angry about things, and we you know, like to talk about these things because they're important to talk about.
Well, they're important because, as I said, my philosophy is everything evolves. It's going to evolve that way if we don't do something about it, which is what's been happening. And I know that, yes, to some extent, the government here in Queensland has tried by trying to improve or trying to have stronger penalties for things. Which we have to see how that rolls out.
That's right. And we've got people who are advocating against that, right? Because, you know, rightly so, they're children that we are talking about, and we're going to say adult crime, adult time. You know, that could see a 14-year-old young girl in jail for the rest of her life. Now, personally, I think that's the right thing. That's my view. I do think you do adult crime, but what's an adult crime these days? Like, what, you know, I know, and there is, the policy has, I think it's
just generally, if the law is broken, you'll be treated as an adult.
Well, yeah.
You know, in terms of the penalties that are imposed. And I think until that gets out there, and that's why you said this case is going to be probably a landmark in terms of, you know, whether these teenagers are actually found guilty and the actual adult penalty is applied. Because I do believe in deterrence. There needs to be deterrence, but I'm also very big on causation. So, you know, kids have, as you said, there's always been violence in families. We all know that hurt people, but it's the prevalence of the anger in young people. And why are they so angry? What have we got so wrong? And that's not just the government. You can't sit that there. Or, you know, it's we always say it takes a village to bring up children. So what is it about our society fabric that is making these kids so angry? Because at the age of 10, I knew right from wrong.
Yeah.
I was taught to respect people's property. I respected police. In fact, I would become quite, even though I hadn't done anything wrong, if I saw a policeman, I'd be quite nervous.
Still am.
Right? Because he's the law, right? So you're like, oh.
I see like a breathalyzer, but I'm like, oh, don't pull me over. I haven't had a drink. Don't pull me over, don't pull me over.
Exactly, there's a response because of how you respected them as children. And, you know, if I went to someone else's house, we were both taught, my brother and I, that, you know, you didn't just go to fridges or you just didn't do anything. You had to ask for permission, you know. And when you used things, you were careful.
Always ask.
Respectful.
Our kids still, maybe not now, not in their 30s, but, you know, they would always ask. And if you went to someone's place, it was Mr. and Mrs. It wasn't, hey, Tracy. It was like, oh, Mrs. McClelland, you know, how are you today? Like, there was that.
And I'm not saying that there wouldn't have been other children that were like potentially, you know, these alleged teenagers that have committed this crime. They would have been there. But there was something that was right then.
So
you know?
I feel like it's a respect thing. I don't know. And look, I think we've, we're probably digressing. And I know both Tracy and I really feel strongly about what's happened with Oliver Conroy and his family. And, you know, we don't have the answers. We could talk about this all day, but, you know, we will watch this case and see what happens because, I as you said, I think it will be a bit of a landmark case for the Queensland government to see what happens with these young people if they are convicted of this crime and, you know, we'll just have to watch and see what happens. And I'm sure it's going to take some time for all of this to play out. There are a lot of other cases as well that I'm particularly following. And again, they seem to be because we live in Queensland. But I just feel like we are at a point in time where people have had enough, and we do expect, whether, it does take a village. I agree, it absolutely takes a village, but I feel like we are really looking to our governments, rightly so, to start to do something with our legal system and our justice system to make sure that it meets community standards, and the standards have changed. And having said that, though, where I was going with that is, we talk about respect, and back in the day we do respect, but if you look around the things, I used to have this saying at work. I still have this saying, I guess, to a degree, but it was important for me when I was working. The standard you walk past is the standard that you set or you accept. And, but it's very difficult if you're walking past something happening in the street to, that it is not right. It's very difficult, or we all get a bit nervous about going and addressing that because we're worried we might end up being a victim of some sort. So, we do walk past a lot of stuff. And one of the things I noticed, and this is just minor, and we would love your thoughts. It's minor, but it's not, and I'd like to know what you think, Tracy. Back in the day when you watched TV, there was the biggest exciting thing on TV back in the day, I think, for anyone, was Number 96. Do you remember Number 96?
I do remember it.
Right? And the most exciting thing was, and it was on at 8:30 at night because, we were all meant to be in bed before 8:30, and most probably back then, most kids were in bed by 8:30. But I think there was this big thing because I think her name was Abigail, and she showed her boobs. And that was like, oh my God, I think that was like front page, not because of her boobs, but because that was like, oh my God, look what's happening on TV. And it was Number 96, and it was about all these people who lived in a block of flats, and it was Number 96, and it was all these different characters. And there was also, I can't remember his name, but there was also a gay guy. And again, back then that was a bit, gay guy, like, we don't do gay guys, but there was a gay guy. Now on TV, on Netflix, on any of the streaming services, like, nothing is off limits. Like, nothing is off limits. And even the swearing, right? But you would never ever hear the F word back in the day. And then it started to be sort of drip fed into movies, TV shows, all that. Now it's just common. Now the C word, right? We all know what the C word is. See you next Tuesday, is being drip fed into movies, TV shows. I mean, if you're a Ricky Gervais fan, which I am, it's not being drip fed. It's every second word is see you next Tuesday. But so do you know what I mean? It's like the standards that we once had, back in the 70s, for those sort of things. So our kids are seeing more of this in the movies, on TV, because they all watch it, on the internet, on YouTube, so we see more violence on TV as well. And we sometimes see more violence just for violence sake. Have you ever watched a movie and you thought, well, I don't even get the point of why that happened, because it was sort of unnecessary. It didn't really make sense for the movie. So, I don't know. I don't know where we're going to end up, but I do think that for Queensland and probably Australia, I think we're at a turning point where we do expect our government to do something around a lot of things, not just crime. There's a whole range of things that I could bang on about. And this is a bit of a longer one. I think this will be our Sunday version. But, you know, I'm following a man that has been accused of sexually abusing or sexually harming a child under the age of 12 and grooming a child under the age of 12. Not convicted, alleged, you know, all that stuff. But it was let out on bail and has breached bail like 17 times, right? And again, last weekend, he was arrested in a place where he shouldn't have been, not supposed to be around children, arrested in a place where he shouldn't be. And again, the public have picked up on this. He's now still in custody and will be remanded in custody. He hasn't been let out. Went to the magistrate on Saturday or Sunday or Monday, whenever he went. Not being let out now, and his case has been adjourned to next week sometime, and so they're remanding him in custody, as he should be, in my view. You know, pedophilia and anyone who is they're accused, like I said, it's alleged, but anyone who is committed of that crime, in my view, should be locked up and never let out again. We have a case, you know, and again, Tracy, I know this is important with the Sydney Swans right now. And even though everything's alleged and it's unfolding daily, you know, we've got these standards that community expect of our elite football players, and they've breached that trust of the public by their behaviour. So, you know, they've been suspended for the rest of the year. Nothing to do with the alleged crime that took place or incident that took place, but this is just around their behaviour with the football club. Kids see that. They see they look up to their sporting heroes, and you know, as that story unfolds, oh, they did that and got off.
That's why the response is so important. So important.
Yeah.
And I think, look, I've been fortunate enough that I've travelled to some very safe countries, one being Dubai, another being Singapore, another being Japan. Now, they have crime. There would be organised crime 100%. But incidents like what we're talking about here with Oliver, that just would not happen over there. Or if it did, there would be obviously very swift action, Dubai being Sharia law. The thing that strikes me about those countries is, even though there are tough laws and lots of laws, people are happy because they're safe.
And I don't know, I think that's the dilemma for us. Like, we want that safe place. We want to live in safe places, but we don't want our freedoms taken away like some of those countries have.
But have they?
Well, we would probably look at it and go, yes, you know, I mean, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here because, you know, this could get really murky. I feel like in Australia, we like our freedom of speech. We like to be able to say things about people or make jokes and go, but I was just joking. It's just a joke, but it's affected people. I think we're in a country where we are very laid back, and we have been for many years, and that probably looks different today than it did 50 years ago, what laid back looked like. But I feel like we constantly, as a broader community, criticise those countries for the laws that they have, yet we want the same penalties that those countries have for when people commit crimes over here. Does that make sense? I don't know. We don't want to be told that we can't chew chewing gum as we're walking around the street, like, they are in some places. We don't want that. We want to be able to chew chewing gum, and if I want to throw it on the ground, I want to throw it on the ground.
Yeah.
But if you commit a murder, or if you're a pedophile, or if you're that, we want you, hung, quartered, all the things that just we don't have in this country. A lot of people will, talk about bringing back capital punishment. Now, I don't believe that will ever happen. I don't ever believe we will bring back capital punishment. Yes, it happens in lots of other parts of the world. I'm not a fan of it. And I think, what if they got it wrong? Like, what? And they have got it wrong in the past. But I think that's the dilemma. It's a dilemma for me. I want the full force of the law to be put upon anyone who is convicted of a crime. But I also don't think that our penalties and punishments are enough. Because most times over here, life is 20 years or whatever.
That's right.
But you get out on parole after 10.
That's right.
And then you can just go and do what you want to do.
Yeah.
You just go, you're like you said.
Although it does vary, because it's like and I can't remember her name, but the mushroom murders, the Wellington, I can't remember her name, but, her life sentence, maybe because there were multiple, that maybe this is why she's not eligible until 81.
I know. But see, I get annoyed about that because the reason I get annoyed about that is, okay, it was a terrible crime. Like, she committed a crime. There's no doubt, and she should be punished. We have men who murder their wives and they get a couple of years and they're out. Yet she's, again, I understand it's a crime. But it's not consistent.
It fits the crime, but it's not, as you said, it's not across the board. Like, you've got too many. There's murder, then there's murder, then there's murder, and then there's murder.
Yeah.
It's like, murder is murder. You've taken a life.
Yeah.
If it's been in self-defense, then the law will find, okay, this was in self-defense. So you still murdered somebody. That may still mean that you have to go to jail, but you were, trying to protect yourself. But you may have broken the law to do that, as opposed to,
You murdered someone because you murdered them.
Exactly.
And then the whole thing, so anyway, the law, I think the law,
it's wishy-washy.
It's very wishy-washy. I don't think we have a legal system, not a justice system. I don't think that justice ever is served, I don't think we ever get justice for everyone the right way it should be done. But I don't know what to do about it. I write a little bit, not when I say write, I share posts, on my Facebook and that, and it's more just to raise awareness and to try and get, because I do think these days politicians are actually looking at social media a lot more and seeing what, maybe not the politicians themselves, but the people around them are pulling out what is getting some traction, and will, take a bit of that and go and do, and we have seen where, some governments are trying to change laws, and it's not easy, I'm sure, to get some of these laws changed. But I do, again, go back to my point before. I think we are at a point in this country where we are looking to our government to do, to both our federal and our state governments, to do something. We have to do something to stop the amount of youth crime that is happening in our country, and and any other crime, domestic violence, pedophiles. I was talking to someone earlier today, to my cleaner actually, and I said, we were talking about whatever we were talking about, but I'm grateful that I'm retired and that I can be at home and look after our grandson for part of the week, because they're my son and daughter-in-law's child. They get to choose what happens. But personally, I wouldn't want any of my grandchildren or family or children going into daycare. I just don't trust it. There are great people that work in daycare. The majority of people who work in daycare centres are the best people. They care for the children. They do all the things. But we're seeing too many right now crimes, people, pedophiles who are being, found in daycare, childcare centres. Like, unbelievable. So, but we've got to trust, don't you? Because not everyone has the privilege of being able to have someone else look after their children. They've got to send them to these centres and, trust that they're doing the right thing. So there's so much out there we could talk about.
It's a dilemma. It's a dilemma, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on, some of this. I think we're just scraping the surface here, but, we do know that this is something that needs, we need to do something. And so I think the conversation is important to have, which is why we're having it today.
Yeah. And I hope that, you're safe, and we'll put up some numbers of, that are available for people to, contact if you're in, positions that you need to maybe talk to someone. But we would love to know your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree on any of that.
Yeah.
And I think on that note,
it's time for a cup of tea. Enjoy your cuppa. I hope that you've enjoyed this session, and we look forward to welcome you next time.
Cheers for now.
Cheers.